I'll introduce myself in a moment, but as a follow-up to Denis, we do not have enough people in the world who understand accessibility. 490 or 70, it's not enough for France. It's not enough for here. It's not enough for Paris, let alone the rest of this country. It's not enough people. There aren't enough bodies. There aren't enough foot soldiers for accessibility anywhere in the world. My name is David DIKTER. I'm the CEO of ATIA, the Assistive Technology Industry Association. We have been working with a group of companies and organizations for the past several years, looking at how we can change this dynamic that exists today around accessibility. And we're not talking just web. Web is big enough, but software, issues that this person was asking about SAP, and the hundreds and thousands of companies that implement SAP solutions and break the accessibility built into SAP products. We've been working together for a long time, and we are finally at a place where we are talking about the creation of a global accessibility community, a profession. How many in the audience, if I can see, consider themselves accessibility professionals? A lot of you, most of you. You are accessibility professionals. I believe that, but the world does not recognize you as professionals. And that, in our industry, in our world of accessibility, is a problem. So let me just move this slide along a bit. I don't keep too well to my slides, but they're online and you'll be able to read all of them. So we have some challenges. There's a constant pace of change. For those of you who are working in accessibility, the software, the platforms, the mobile, all of the different varieties of ways that you can create something on the internet or some piece of software, the change is incredibly fast, and it's happening all the time, and we're not keeping up very well. There is not broadly agreed upon understanding of what it means for technology to be accessible. And the guidance for that, while we have great standards, the interpretation and the guidance of that and the misunderstandings are more prevalent often than the understandings. Organizations, and I talk to a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses, large and small, and myself as an organization trying to make sure that our technology is accessible, they're struggling. How do you effectively procure accessible technology? How do you integrate it with other systems? And how do you meet the needs of this very diverse community of people with disabilities? It's not just about visual impairments. It's about a whole range of people. It's difficult, as we just were hearing. How does a company, whether it be a large corporation or a small business, how do they recruit someone with the expertise in accessibility? There's no way, as we heard from several speakers, there's no way for anyone to know other than reading a resume and saying, wow, this person has some accessibility skills. In many cases, those skills are not equal across anyone. And it's a very serious problem in promoting accessibility. For the companies that are doing accessibility consulting, they can't hire enough people who have skills. For the big corporations who have dedicated accessibility professionals, they can't find enough skilled people. They have to always train and retrain and find new people. And for the people embedded in projects and programs where accessibility is not their primary job responsibility, they're a designer or a developer, they code, they sit in their home all day and they're coding. Their job is not primarily accessibility. How do you get those people trained? And I really like what BrailleNet is doing, and it's happening everywhere in the world, but we're still not meeting capacity. It's difficult for individuals working in this field, it's difficult for all of you, to maintain your expertise. Where do you go? Who do you go to? Who are the experts? Are you all the experts? That's one of the people Sean is one of the people I would be able to go to and say definitively, there is an expert on web accessibility. But we know most of those people, most of us who have been in the field long enough, we know them. We can count them. It's not thousands and thousands. We can count them. We know who the definitive word would be here in France or in the US or even globally. I know Rob Sinclair, who was supposed to be here and do this speech, but he couldn't be here. But if you want to talk to somebody who knows accessibility, some of us can go to them. What about all of the people who don't know this community? So those are some big, big challenges. And there is a group of folks who have some very serious thoughts on a solution. And it's really about creating a global organization that can support individuals working in and pursuing knowledge on accessibility, for organizations, that's corporations, government, NGOs, it's every organization, to be able to gain knowledge, better knowledge of how to incorporate accessibility into their process, and very important to all of us in this working group, on how to value accessibility professionals, how to put accessibility professionals into the right places in the right time, and what are the best strategies for that. And one of the other solutions is really starting to create a community. We have a very nice, close community here, I can tell. BrailleNet has created a very nice community. There are nice communities all over the world around accessibility, in India, in China, in America, in every country in Europe. But the interconnections between those communities require all of us to repeat the same effort over and over and over again. And it doesn't get us that much further down the road. We've been doing this a long time. We need more than hundreds of companies doing accessible web. We need tens of thousands in order for the web to be accessible, in order for software to be accessible. So what are we going to do about it? So my organization has been working with a large group for quite some time, since 2010, and we did a survey. We stumbled onto some information on a survey of developers, and that was a very broad term, developers. And then we went through and had a full working group for about 6 months, a series of working groups, talking about what could be done. And people were talking about, well, we need a central portal for everyone to be able to go to. We need, we need centralized, resources where everybody can find training from one place where you don't have to look everywhere. There were lots of great ideas. But really what it all kind of coalesced into was we actually need a professional organization. We need a profession. Successful professionals, most often in the world, whether you're in privacy profession, there's one professional organization that has the certification. It's trusted. It's trusted around the world. They have their European version, they have their Canadian version, they have a IT developer version of privacy. There is Usability Association and chapters all over the world. So we presented at CSUN, which is a conference in San Diego, on technology and disability. And we had a full-day meeting last year, and we started to talk about this idea of a professional association. And really about taking accessibility mainstream. We've talked about it for years, but could this be different? Could an association creation be different? Out of that, there was a group of about 20 to 25 individuals representing large and small corporations, accessibility consultants, who came together and sat down to decide whether or not this could actually be done. And last October, they met for several days, and they started talking about what would this look like, what would it include, and how would we pay for it? What would it cost? How would any of that kind of stuff happen? So they've actually come together and created a mission statement. We actually don't have a name yet because we had a little bit of a contest a couple weeks back to try and figure out the name. So Thursday when I get back, we're going to finalize a name. But the mission statement they came up with, I think, is something that most people could agree with. The mission of the Professional Association for Accessibility is to define, promote, and improve the accessibility profession globally through networking, education, certification, in order to enable the creation of accessible products, content, and services. We have people involved from publishing to banking and financial services to IT companies across industries to travel and leisure and media companies to accessibility consultants. We don't have just IT or just the tried and true who have been in this field a long time. We have a very diverse group of folks represented in this group, and you'll see them at the end. So they've created 4 real goals, big goals, and there's a lot of detail behind this. I'm going to skip over some of it so that Sean has time to speak today too, and it's late. One of the goals is really to create the association, create an infrastructure that allows for a global nature for people to join in. The association is not about companies, it's not about organizations, it's actually about individuals, because these kinds of professional associations, which have been done before, this is nothing new in the world of a profession. They're about each one of you and contributions and networking and opportunities for all of you and all of the people who are not yet involved in accessibility. Individual professional development was really the critical piece. And I'm looking forward to working with lots of you who are already working on ideas like certification, because one of the areas of professional development would be to develop a certification pathway. It's not just one certification that will get developed. It'll have to be many. In accessibility, it's not just one, possibly even one web certification. It may be multiple. It will be software. And what about mobile? And what about the travel industry and their issues around accessibility? And what about content contributors and developers? We heard from Pearson, and one of Pearson's global accessibility folks has been working with us. You know, they have thousands of textbooks, 400 and 500 pages long. They have teams of 10, 20, or 30 people working on that content. How do you get that many people to understand how to write a quality description of an image if that image's content is critical? How does a large company like that do it? I don't know that they have the solution yet, but they're working on it, and lots of other companies are working on it. So how do they then share that, and how do you learn about that? We also wanted to look at organizational development because we think that it's important for organizations to start to look inward. And how do you get an organization, a corporation, to start looking at their strategy around accessibility? And with the backing and the influence of a larger group, not just one small group, marching forward, trying to carry the strong flag and say, hey, you need to be accessible. How do you get a bigger global community together to push some of these issues even further? And then one of the big pieces about this organization that we're forming relates to community development. That getting the answers that you need on time and accurate, getting resources that are accurate. If you go to the web today and search for some things, you may find, if you're new at it, if you have not been involved and somebody in your company said, hey, somebody mentioned something about accessibility, this is for the government, and they go start looking for things, they can find things back to 1987. And I'm sure all of you would trust something written in 1987 to be applied today. Not at all. So I have some very detailed things around the individual professional development in each of these goals. I'm going to move forward because I'm more interested in talking and having questions. But the community involvement piece really relates around trying to create that portal concept where you can have content communities, where you might have someone like Sean joining into dialogue, where there might be professional development and training led by some of the leaders that we all hear about. That's easy to get to, that you know about. But also where you might find and point other people to say, hey, if you look here, you'll find what you're looking for in a much easier manner. So some of our founding members to date, and the way we've set up the organization so far, we do not have a website. We have one email address, and we're taking our time at rolling this out because we want to make sure that we're building the pieces and the parts and communicating and be ready when we're opening the door for people to sign up and join in, that we have some of these parts and pieces together. The founding members are called founding members because they're actually contributing the money. For the first year or so, individual members will not have to pay anything to be part of this professional association. The founding members felt like that was really important. We want people to join in and be part of something bigger, and we don't want the money piece to be a barrier. So they've contributed some large sums of money. Some have contributed $50,000 and some 10 and some 5. But AbilityNet, Nigel was up here and mentioned me a few times. Adobe is a founding member. AI Squared, which is a company that makes Zoom text. They're an assistive technology company. AvePoint, which I don't know if any of you know that, they work around some SharePoint product and some security. IBM, Interactive Accessibility, Microsoft Nomensa, which is from the UK, the SSB Bart Group, which is an accessibility consulting firm, as well as the Paciello Group. And our current board, as you can see, is some folks from different arenas. We have some insurance companies, some banks, some other accessibility firms from other parts of the world. Microsoft they were on that list. Disney and Pearson. This is going to happen soon. We are funding it and opening it up because these folks, some of whom are in the audience and some who spoke, are eager to see a very dramatic change in the way accessibility happens today. The way our profession is going today is essentially growing at a pace that will continue to be like the pace over the past 15 years. It's not enough. The companies that I talk to are challenged even as they want to implement things. They don't have enough people to do it. They don't have the power even within their company to get the resources to do it. So you think Microsoft, you think large corporations, they have to have resources internally to implement across hundreds and hundreds of product development teams. They don't have the resources. They need greater strength around them to get that to happen. If you're a small organization, like my organization, you pretty much don't develop technology, you buy it. You buy third-party technology. In the world of associations, which is the world that I work in, and I run an association, there is not one dedicated product for associations that's accessible. And there are hundreds of technologies that have been built on web platforms and software as well. There's not one that's accessible. I cannot force any company like you can't force any company. For small and medium-sized businesses to turn around to a developer and say, I demand it to be accessible, and it's a product that thousands will use, it's a daunting challenge for them to actually accomplish that. It's a daunting challenge even if the company they're working with says, sure, we'll look into it, because when they look into it, they don't have clear way to go. They don't know where to point their staff easily to get what they need. And therefore they see it as time equals money equals we can't do it. This is not in our pipeline of development. And we've all heard that over and over again from a lot of smaller development firms. So our goal is to move this forward. We have a distribution list, an email actually, info@accessprofessional.org. And we are interested in having all of you join in as members in the future. We're interested in your voice and in your part of the community, and for you to join into a much, much larger community. We believe that this can affect an incredible amount of change. And I know that there's a lot of great work here happening here in France, but your work and your effort can in fact help a lot of others as well. So I think we can open for some questions, and thank you. One or two?